Eskom says it may have to implement stage 1 load shedding from this hour until 10 o'clock tonight. In a statement, the power utility says the move is due to a shortage of generating capacity. It has warned that there is also a strong possibility of load shedding tomorrow and at the weekend. This is because Eskom needs to replenish emergency diesel and water reserves. Former Minister of Finance, Trevor Manuel, has expressed concern over the state of affairs at Eskom. He says part of the reason why state-owned enterprises like Eskom continue to be in a state of collapse is because the Public Finance Management Act is not followed. Manuel is testifying at the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture in Parktown, Johannesburg. He says Eskom used to be the centre of investment, but that has changed in the past 10 years. Manuel believes Eskom's financial situation increases the burden of debt of the general economy. He says this leads to the country having to borrow at a far higher cost. So for more on this story, I cross to my colleague Mzwandile Mbeje, who's standing by for us at the State Capture Inquiry. Mzwandile, so former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel talking about a lot of issues, raising concerns around Eskom, raising concerns around how people would just allow themselves to be summoned to the Gupta residence and so on. Tell us more.
Thank you very much, Nombo. That clip you have referred to, where he was speaking about Eskom, he was basically illustrating it as how people are really disregarding, the rules or the PMFA guidelines in terms of handling the finances. But I think the thrust of his testimony today, Nombo, was really to speak about the response, or rather the statements by former Minister Fikile Mbalula at the NEC of 2011 in August, when he basically stood up at the NEC and complained that he had been told by the Guptas that he was going to be appointed the Minister of Sport. Though there are some of the disagreements insofar as what exactly he meant then. Remember, Minister Manuel at some point penned a public letter, an open letter to Minister Mbalula, speaking about some of these issues, and then Minister Mbalula obviously responded, and then he was disputing the fact that he cried at NEC, and then in this commission, I think Mr. Manuel was very careful to say Minister Mbalula was very emotional, because I think the thrust of the issue here, Nombo, is that given that there was so much pressure and there was wide-ranging discussions around the influence of the Guptas, and here was someone really standing up at the NEC to say, when I was about to be appointed, so I got this call, and then I was invited by the Guptas. Obviously, Minister Manuel is talking about Saxon World, but the Guptas, I think AJ Gupta is saying they met at Sahara. So, which Minister Manuel said, well, that was immaterial. I think the thrust of the matter is that the Guptas somehow did inform him that he was going to be appointed. So I think that was the issue really that he was dealing with. And then after that, Nombu, the judge took time to really tap into the experience of former Minister Manuel to say, given that he has spent a long time in public service as a government minister, and what is it that he knows, and what is it that should be done perhaps to prevent this kind of occurrence happening in the future. That's why, his evidence concluded quite early. It was quite short, but before he even gave his main evidence, he had to give the background, given his experience in government. He had to give the background of how the cabinet appointments are done. So from when he was appointed by President Mandela and then up to President Jacob Zuma. So all those things were what the commission was really interested in, so that it could have insight into what happens when it comes to cabinet appointments.
Mzwandile, what was he saying specifically around Eskom?
Well, as I was saying, the Eskom was just a reference. Remember, he had been asked to say, as someone really who was part of drafting the PMFA, so what is it that could be done better? And then he was saying, given that so many entities are not following the rules or the guidelines of PMFA, so you see a state like it's happening at Eskom. The reason why you have so many changes at Eskom, you have so many wastage, and every time Eskom needs money because people are not following rules. So he was not necessarily speaking about Eskom. That was just a reference as part of what PMFA needs to do.
And just lastly, Mzwandile, I did catch a bit of his representation, and it seemed as though every time Ms. Qabashe was asking him questions, he kept on referring to the fact that he wasn't there and that he didn't want to get into the area of conjecture. Can you just speak around that?
Well, I think what we did get to understand when the testimony was being given here was that after, this is how it happens, Nompo. If, let's say, you intend to come to the commission and give evidence, obviously you mention a number of people. So the commission will then notify those people to say, so-and-so has prepared this statement to the commission. And those individuals, some of them will have the right, in fact, they will have the right to also write, either correcting or putting their own version. So basically, the statement that he was going to deliver here in terms of giving testimony about how Balula went about at the NSC, telling them that he had been informed by the Guptas that he was going to be appointed by a minister, to be a minister. So apparently between them, I think during that time, there was a number of exchanges in terms of letters disputing this and that other fact. So as a result, some of the issues that he was speaking on, he was clear to say, well, I'm basically deducing based on what happened. So, and the issue really of what transpired between Mr. Mbalula and AJ Gupta, insofar as the offering of the information about the cabinet appointment. So it's something that he heard about. I mean, he was not there. So I think that's why he would say some of what I'm saying is really conjecture, based on what I've seen happen, based on what I've heard from people, but not that I was part of some of those things. I think that's the context of that conjecture that you had.
And very quickly, Mzwandile, what's up next? Are we done for the day, or is there somebody coming up next?
Well, we're not done yet. Remember, there is today we're scheduled to have two witnesses. The former Minister of Communications, General Siphiwe Nyanda, is the one who will take the witness stand after lunch. But as for Minister Manuel, so he's done for the day, and then we expect Minister Manuel, former Minister Nyanda, Siphiwe Nyanda, to take the stand after lunch.
Okay, super. That's my colleague Mzwandile Mbeje. He's our senior political reporter. Tensions are running high at the magistrates'